Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Short Hops with Wichita Wingnuts manager Kevin Hooper. Short Hops is a weekly program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Wichita manager questions about the Wingnuts, baseball or sports in general, or just seek Kevin's wisdom about what's going on in life. This week, Kevin answers a bunch of questions for us about the World Series. He talks a little bit about his team and his aspirations for affiliate baseball, and he shares with us his NFL insights. So let's get right to Short Hops. So I want to welcome back manager Kevin Hooper this week. Kevin, let's first of all just begin with team updates that you have for us about the Wingnuts there.
Yeah, Robert, not a whole lot going on. Really no big updates as from last time. I know people are probably excited to start getting some updates with our team, but it'll start coming sooner than later. So we'll start plugging away at it. Made a contact with a couple guys here and there, but nothing too crazy, and no real big moves that we've made this week.
Obviously, with the World Series just ending, we have lots of questions related around that. So we'll begin with our first one from Dave from Andover, who asked, those Kansas City Royals are just so good, you have to like the way they play, I would assume.
Absolutely, Dave. They play our type of ball. I know a lot of people compare it, especially last year, the way that they play compared to the way that we play. They're very similar. We take a lot of pride in fundamentals in the way we play the game. We usually have some speed guys. We're not a overly home run hitting team. We can, there's, year to year it varies obviously with our roster, but, we're typically a team that's going to try to put the ball in play the best we can and grind out at bats and put some tough at bats together and play really good defense and also run and be able to pitch too. And, it was a lot of fun to watch them. They were never out of any game. And that's what makes it so fun, when a team's never out of it and they've got that faith that it doesn't matter how many we get down, what inning it is, we're still going to battle to the end. And they had proven that throughout all of the playoffs. I think the big turning point was Houston when they were down 6-2 in the eighth inning. That was an elimination game.
Yep.
They lose that game, they're not even moving on. And to win that game and to move on, I think that just kind of got them rolling and just carried on throughout the rest of the playoffs. And congrats to the Royals on winning the World Series. It's been 30 years here in the Midwest since they'd won one up in Kansas City, and good to see. I always say good for baseball, good for the Midwest for sure.
An interesting statistic I saw was that they outscored their opponents in the postseason after the seventh inning, 51-11. That's how you win games.
Yeah, that's definitely how you win games. You talk about never being out of it. That's just a proven fact right there in those numbers. They were never out of it, and they believed that they were never out of it, and that's what made them so special.
Ted from McConnell Air Force Base asked, were you surprised by the outcome of the World Series?
I really wasn't. I thought, it was going to be a really good matchup. Very similar teams, I thought. I think that they're similar. Neither one of them had neither one were big power-hitting teams. They were pretty fundamentally sound throughout the season. Now the Mets kind of imploded. Just defensively, and they didn't play good defense at all throughout the whole series, and made a lot of base running mistakes, I felt, and just didn't do the little things right.
Yeah, I'm curious from you from a defensive standpoint. Is it easier to move as an infielder from playing on turf onto grass to play?
Is it easier to move?
Like is the transition easier than vice versa? So if I was a turf guy like in Kansas City and went to play on grass, is it easier to play that way than the reverse?
Well, both of them play on grass.
I thought Kansas City played on turf, didn't they? Oh, okay, maybe I'm mistaken.
No,
okay.
KC's grass as well. You may be thinking of Toronto when they're there.
Yeah.
But I would say the easiest transition would be from grass to turf.
Okay.
As opposed to turf to grass. Just because I think on turf you're going to get that good hop 99 out of 100 times, whereas on dirt, not so much. Now in the big leagues it's a little different. Those fields are pretty pristine. And I've always stated I'd love to play on a fresh cut, well-manicured grass field as opposed to turf any day of the week. But you can get a little lazy on turf. I've seen guys get real lazy on turf just because, like I said, you're going to get that hop that you want. And, it's a little tougher going from turf to dirt, I feel. A lot tougher, actually, than going from dirt to turf, where you're like, man, I know exactly what kind of hop I'm going to get on this turf as opposed to maybe being at home on lawn dirt. Just my opinion.
Interesting. I thought Kansas City was a turf when they won in '85, but maybe I'm wrong.
No. Yeah, it was. No, you're right. It was in '85.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yeah, it was. It used to be turf.
Okay.
And I know when I was in the big leagues in '05 and '06, it was the natural grass. I'm not real sure what year it was where they turned that over to the grass, but it's definitely well manicured. Some of those grass fields look like turf because they're so nice.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm just glad to know I wasn't losing my mind for a moment there, so I feel better now. Okay. Jacob from Augusta would like to know, the Royals starting pitching was a lot better than everyone gave them credit for. Why don't people get the idea that ERAs are going to cause people to have higher ERAs in the AL because of the designated hitter action?
Yeah, good point, Jacob. Because ERAs are going to be higher in the AL just because of you got that one extra hitter you got to face every night. Now, of course, there's some pitchers that can swing the bat a little bit, but more often than not, 8 out of 10 times they are going to be an out, and a lot easier to pitch too in those situations. But I'm not so sure. No one was giving them credit. I think that those horses from the Mets were getting all of the credit, if that makes sense. I just think those 3 horses in New York are pretty stellar, and I think everybody was giving them all the credit as opposed to, we didn't hear a whole lot about those guys from KC, but just goes to show they definitely held their own against them.
Absolutely. Denny from Benton would like to know, what did you think of Terry Collins leaving in Matt Harvey in the 9th? Did you believe that was a big mistake?
Denny, I figured we couldn't get through this week without somebody asking me that question, because I've actually had it asked quite a bit the last couple of days. It's tough. You talk about a tough spot. Tough spot as a manager. Here it is. This is your horse, and a guy who says, "Give me the ball. I want to go back out there." I think the biggest turning point for me was when he went out there and walked the leadoff guy. I mean, you're up 2 runs, and as far as I'm concerned, if that's me and our pitchers, we're seeing how far that guy can hit the ball because he can't hit a 2-run home run. I'm going at him, trying to put him in play. I was surprised that they let him face Hosmer. I thought, me in that situation, I've been in that situation, obviously not in a World Series elimination game, but we've been in that situation many times where I'll let a starter maybe start the 9th, and I tell my staff he's got 1 base run. My thought is Harvey pitched his tail off. Don't put him in a situation where he's going to get a no decision or a loss for that matter if they would have left him in even longer. But let him give up. He gives up the 1 run, especially since it was a walk. I think that might have just been a sign right there. Hey, all right, it's time. And then Hosmer gets the big hit, and they made him count from there out. But it's just a tough spot. Hindsight's 20/20, I always say. And as a manager, there's always times that, or a coach for anything for that matter, where you can second guess yourself. I don't. I kind of make it a pact with myself. I'm never going to second guess myself. Sure, you're going to go back and think about the situation, and maybe next time you get in it, but you can't second guess yourself. You get paid to be put in that spot, and you're in that spot for a reason. And sometimes I tell everybody I'm going to be wrong. Sometimes I'm going to be right. And those real good guys are fortunate that they're right more often than not. But a lot of times it just doesn't happen, and just a tough spot. That was a really tough spot. I wasn't surprised he's sitting back out, though. It's tough not to where he was, especially Familia had thrown quite a bit, and it's just a tough spot. But I would have sent him back out. In my shoes, after the walk, Familia would have been coming in.
I'm curious from your standpoint as a manager, is that, especially a guy like yourself who really relies on starting pitching, this is your ace.
Yep.
I mean, I heard a lot of people criticize, I don't even know why they let him go out in the 9th. And I've thought to myself, okay, this is your ace. He's telling you he wants the ball. Now, as the manager, I'm assuming you say to yourself, if this guy tells me he's ready to go, I'm going to have complete confidence in him to go out there. So I didn't really even see there was a question why you would let him go out.
Well, and it's easy to be the armchair quarterback, like I always say. Easy to sit at home and be like, why is he even going back out? Well, until you've ever been put in that situation, it's not easy. For me, it's happened with John Link numerous times. With a guy like Link, a veteran-type guy, where you have to trust your guys. You have to believe in your guys. And they hadn't done a whole lot against him up to that point.
Absolutely.
And you had some struggles in the bullpen at times, and I don't see anything wrong with sending him back out. Now, what you did after that, after the first guy got on, agree, disagree, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Collins gets paid to be the manager of the New York Mets, and that was the decision he made. And you know what? If they would have gone 1, 2, 3, everybody would have been praising him. That's just how this industry works and how sitting in this chair works. So it is what it is.
I actually am completely in support of what you're saying, because it just seemed like this is your ace. This is the guy who helped to get you there, and
absolutely.
Plus, he's thrown 8 shutout innings. I mean, so what else do you want at that point? So.
Well, and it's also, Robert, a situation. Okay, you don't send him back out, and Familia gives up 3 runs. Well, everybody's going to be questioning, why didn't you send him back out?
Yeah.
You know, it's just how it works. It's how the game works. It's how the public works, the media works, and like I said, everybody's going to have their own assumptions, but. As a manager sitting in a chair, you got to have thick skin and believe in what you do and ride it out sometimes.
Speaking of how things work out for you, Sid from Wichita would like to know, toss-up, Kevin, Daniel Murphy, postseason hero or World Series GOAT?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say GOAT. It's crazy, though, what he did in the postseason up until the World Series, and then the Royals just shutting down. And then the mistakes he made defensively. I think GOAT's kind of a harsh word. You're never going to hear me really probably say anything about it. I mean, Daniel Murphy's a guy who carried the Mets to the World Series.
Absolutely.
So to say GOAT in the World Series, I think that's a little too much. Yeah, he scuffled. I mean, he had a tough 4 games, no doubt about it, and defensively made some big miscues, you know, in big situations. And it's going to happen. Those guys are human beings just like us, and they're going to make mistakes. It's just crazy how he did so much and then, just hit a cold spell there and had some unfortunate things go against him. But, Daniel Murphy's a heck of a player and is a big reason why the Mets did get to the World Series.
It's sad to me that a guy performs excellently, and then just a couple of things is going to probably mark this guy, like the Bill Buckner kind of idea.
Oh, yeah.
Terrible.
That's the world we live in. And it's unfortunate. Like I said, very few people get to put the uniform on, especially at that level. And until you do, I don't think you understand how difficult of a game it is and how difficult some of these situations can be. And what an ability those guys are blessed with. And, like you just said, they make a couple mistakes here or there in a big situation. They're remembered for that for the rest of their lives, and it's unfortunate.
And I, when people are out there criticizing him in particular, I just hope they remember that in the history, the 120 years of history of Major League Baseball, that one guy homered 6 times in a row in the playoffs, one guy.
Yep, exactly. Pretty special what he did. Pretty special.
For sure. Harrison from Clearwater would like to know from you. You guys talked about Don Mattingly leaving the Dodgers last week. Do you think he's a good fit in Miami?
I guess time will tell. I know they signed him to a 4-year deal. I read something today. They signed him to a 4-year deal, but no one's really even made it longer than a year for quite some time in Miami. So we'll see what happens. Donnie's been around the game a long time. He was a heck of a player. I was a big fan of. He was actually one of my brother's favorite players growing up, and so definitely paid close attention to him as a player, and then obviously got into managing. And like I stated last week, it's not like they struggled really in LA. There's just some stuff that happened, and that's a tough. It's a lot like New York. That's a tough market to manage in sometimes. With the media and everything just thrown on your back, and good, bad, or indifferent, you're going to be the guy that is going to get questions for everything. And so hopefully Miami's going to be a good fit, and hope it works out for him.
I think people forget too that those out there that are saying a guy like that doesn't deserve a second chance, that the guy in the Met dugout didn't do particularly well in his first shot, and look where he got his team this year. So.
Absolutely.
Actually, both.
It's like a lot of it's like being a player, right place, right time.
Yeah.
Right place, right time, and getting hot and running into those good situations.
Absolutely. Actually, both managers, I think, didn't Ned Yost manage in Milwaukee too?
Yeah, and you know what? Ned was on the hot seat last year.
Yeah.
I really believe if they wouldn't have gotten into the playoffs last year, there was a good chance that something might have happened. And look where he's at today. He's a World Series champ today. So you just never know.
Absolutely. Gordon from Kansas City would like to know, how did you feel about no one telling Volquez that his dad had died? This seems a bit self-serving to him.
Yeah, that's a toughie. But all I've heard is that it was his wife's choice to wait and tell him. And if that's the case, so be it. Family first. Family's first. And, I mean, what's that to Ned or any of those front office people in Kansas City to say? If his wife asks me as a manager or my GM or owner or whoever that they wanted to be the first ones to tell him after the game as a family, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? And, as tough as it might have been, that'd be tough for me. That would be tough for me not to let somebody know right away. But that was the family's wishes, I believe, and if that's the case, you really can't say a whole lot about it.
Phil from Derby would like to know from you. He heard announcers during the World Series talk about how pitchers were continually committing balks, but no one was calling it. If no one is going to call it, then why do they even have the rule?
Yeah, the balk is always a big issue. There's a lot of times where guys balk and it's not called. And I think there's sometimes where a balk is called and a guy doesn't balk. It's tough. It really is. And, it's always talked about. And, big ones, I think a lot of times in the World Series it's talked about a guy not stopping and not coming to a complete set position on the mound where they just kind of roll through it with no stop. And that happens a lot this day and age. You see a lot of the roll, and then I'm always yelling at umpires, hey, make him stop. He's got to stop. And because he's just messing with the timing, not only the base runner but the hitter as well, and it makes it tough. And that's the rule, where a guy's got to come to a complete stop, and if that's the case, and he doesn't, it needs to be called, and I agree. If the rules are the rules of the game are the rules of the game, and when you abide by them and call them accordingly.
Is there, maybe you could tell me, is there an umpire that's more tasked with watching? Because I'm thinking the home plate umpire is really kind of focused on balls and strikes at that point. So do they ask the infield umpires to be a little bit more alert to that kind of thing?
Yeah. I'll always, if it's a guy maybe we faced and we know he's got a balk move, I'll have Jose, my first base coach, I'll have him right away before the game even starts. The first time he's over there, mention something to the umpire over there. Okay. It's kind of like I have him mention that we run balls out. I have him mention it a lot to the first base umpire, pretty much any given night, that, hey, be ready over here. We run balls out on this team, and we got some guys who can run, and there's going to be some bang-bang plays. You need to be ready for them. So I try to prepare guys the best I can, including umpires, for a situation that might come up or that has happened in the past that maybe I see that need to be looked at.
Peter from Greenwich would like to know who you rate as the best manager in baseball right now.
I think that's an easy answer right now, Ned Yost.
Yeah, very, very true.
For him to do what he's done and to do it in back-to-back years, you know how hard it is even to get to the playoffs year in and year out. I talk about it with us, what we've done here. I mean, it's crazy because it's hard enough to get there one year, let alone multiple years in a row. And especially at that level, with that many teams, to be able to put themselves in a situation back-to-back years in the World Series is pretty impressive, what he's done. And he's got that group to buy in. The way they play the game is pretty special.
We have a few questions related to the Wingnuts. The first one comes from Miguel from Wichita, who would like to know if the American Association schedule is coming out soon.
I'd like to know the same thing, Miguel. It's kind of hit or miss, it seems, when it comes out. I think they just want to make sure all the teams are kind of set in stone for the year and whatnot. I want to say years past here, the end of November usually is when we kind of get a heads up. And obviously I'm one of the first, our GM's one of the first ones to get it, all the GMs, and they'll forward it to us managers. And, give us some time to look it over and make sure of some dates. And then I think usually for us, we announce it maybe a little later in December or even January.
I don't know if you and I had talked about this, but I was hearing that there might be an additional team this season. Is that true? or that you're aware of?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think we will have an additional team this year. No.
Okay. Cole from Hayesville would like to know, you always seem to have a new catcher each season. Is this bad news for John Nestor?
That's a good question, Cole. I hope it's not bad news for John Nestor. And you know what, Cole? It's not by choice. Trust me. It's never been by choice. I feel like we've had the best catcher in the league. I've done it for 7 years now. I mean, arguably all 7 years, if not the top two, 1 or 2 in the league. Very important position to me. Arguably the most important position to me. And for whatever reason, every catcher I've had is retired after the fact. So, and to be honest, John has been kind of on the fence of whether he's going to retire or not. But we've had some communication here over the last week, and hopefully we're going to be able to get something done and get him locked back in for a second year. Trainers and catchers, I say, we roll through. We've never had a trainer for 2 years in a row, and never had a catcher for 2 years in a row. So, not by design, Cole, by any means, because, like I said, that's an important position, and to be able to roll through them and roll over them year in and year out, and to be able to continue to do what we've done is pretty special, because I was a middle infielder, and we try to build this thing up the middle, catcher, middle infielder, center fielder. That's how we try to build it around that, and obviously the catching position is the most important as far as I'm concerned.
What did you say? John had 44% of runners got thrown out by him this year?
Yeah, 44, I believe. 43 or 44 this year, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yes.
Benny from Rose Hill would like to know, Kevin, you're one of the best managers. Why won't affiliate teams give you a job?
Benny, I appreciate the support, my man. Awful kind of you to say that, and obviously take a lot of pride in what I do and how I do it. I don't think it's that they won't give me a job. I think it's I won't take one of those jobs. It's kind of what it's at right now. I've turned down numerous affiliated jobs. No secret, I want to be daddy and be a father to my children. That's the most important thing in my life. And, you know, I'm a day-to-day guy, and we'll weigh that down the road maybe when that becomes necessary, because as my girls get older, there might be a chance, just depending on where I'm at that time, that would intrigue me down the road. And, you know, it's going to be just like I've stated before, just like it was when I played. If I do get back into affiliated ball, it's going to be to make an impact on some lives and to get to the big leagues just as it was as a player.
I think people miss the idea that you like what you do, and that's why you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. I do. I love the level. I continue to say that. I love the level. I love being in charge, being able to make the moves that I want to make. And, you know, my dream was to play in the major leagues, not to coach in the major leagues. And like I said, though, if I do get back into it ever at the affiliated level, that is going to be to get to the big leagues as soon as I possibly can.
Absolutely. We have some NFL questions for you this week. We'll first start with Danny from Andale, who asked, the Chiefs are coming alive now. Do you still think they have a chance of making the playoffs?
Yeah, Danny, they are coming alive. I tell you, they put up some points this last week over in London. That was really good to see. I don't know if the word playoffs should be in the vocabulary around the Chiefs right now, but I like you being positive, Danny, that's for sure. We'll see. We'll see kind of what comes of it, and I hope that they can get on a little run here. They got a schedule, I think, coming up where they've got a chance to do that. So as far as I'm concerned, let's go one way or the other. Let's rattle off some wins and get back here close to 500 and chase that 500, or get ourselves lined up for a draft pick, I guess. So, but no, I like the way they played last week. They played really inspiring football, and I actually woke up early Sunday to watch that game and got to watch most of it.
I think that wild card race in the AFC is going to be pretty wide open too. So
yeah, I know it's a weird year in the NFL. You know, they talked about before this week how many undefeated teams and then how many teams there were even below 500. So kind of an odd year in the NFL.
Stan from Wichita would like to know from you, Peyton Manning sure looked good Sunday night. Did that surprise you?
He looked really good, Stan. It's funny you say that. My brother and I were kind of texting back and forth, and he said it looked like the old Peyton showed up tonight. As of last night. So he looks really good. And I think they're coming off a bye, so I'm sure that rest only helped. And, yeah, I'm not sure if you saw, but recently here tonight, the Broncos acquired Vernon Davis, which should definitely help that team because he's a weapon, I think, and to go along with Demarius and Emmanuel there at wide receiver, I think he'll be a big added weapon. And they're 7-0 right now. You got to give it to Peyton. As bad as he's maybe played at times, I continue to say they continue to find a way to win, and that's a big credit to him and being a leader that he is.
Yeah, Vernon Davis, I would figure, just kind of replacing that Julius Thomas role from the last few years. And
yeah, and he was pretty special in that role.
For sure.
So if he can come anywhere even close to doing what Julius did, they're going to be pretty special.
Champ from Goddard would like to know, do you think the Cincinnati Bengals will choke in the playoffs again this season? That's kind of harsh, but okay.
Yeah, choke's a big word, Champ. Big word. But, I don't know. They had a tough go this weekend against Pittsburgh. What a good game that was. And I don't know. They've found a way lately to not get it done in the playoffs. And, I guess that we got a long ways to go for them to even get in the playoffs or even start talking about the playoffs. But they've got a good team. I think Andy Dalton's just getting better and better and better. Jeremy Hill struggled, I know, but if he can get back going with Gio Bernard also, and then they got one of the best receivers in the game in A.J. Green, and I feel like their defense has played well too. So I think they'll have just as good a chance as anybody. It's just like anything once you get to the playoffs, just putting together a good game plan and executing that game plan, and just like any sport, coming through when you need to in big situations.
Michael from Mays would like to know, who are you predicting is going all the way in the NBA this season?
Well, Michael, I'm not a big NBA basketball fan. I'm really not. I don't follow it a ton. The time that I do follow is playoff time. I tell you what, I do watch SportsCenter though, and I see the highlights night in and night out. Steph Curry, what he does in Golden State is pretty special.
Yeah.
I mean, he'll shoot it anywhere on the field, and more often than not, it'll go in. Fun to watch, that's for sure. So I really don't have an answer, Michael. Sorry, I'm not a huge NBA fan, but I guess if I had to give an answer, it'd be the Golden State Warriors.
Looking for the repeat.
Yes.
Ken from Wichita would like to know, what did you think should be the result of that Miami-Duke football game from this last weekend? Don't you think they should change that somehow?
Ken, it's funny you ask. I was actually flipping at commercials of the World Series game, and that time was running down, so I kept it on the game. So I saw that play live. And it was funny. It was just my wife and I out here in the living room, and I was going crazy. I mean, that's honestly one of the coolest plays I've ever seen in a football game watching live. I mean, it was nuts. Unbelievable. Now, I'm guessing Ken is maybe asking the block in the back call.
Well, I think the guy was down, I guess, at one point, too, and they missed that or something.
Yeah, and I know they slowed it down, and it was real close on that one. There was just so much that happened during that play that you could have called maybe, or 8 laterals were thrown, and oh, man, I couldn't do anything but really laugh after it happened. Like, did that really just happen? And to call the block in the back, and you know what? I think there was like 3 of those that could have been close to being blocks in the back. I know the commentators were trying to decide which one it was. And for them to kind of go back and say, it wasn't a block in the back, you got him on the side, just a crazy game. And I don't know if you saw, but the ref came out to make a decision and to say what happened, and then he got called back by the review group to talk to him again. So just a crazy sequence, no doubt. And I'm sure you've seen the replay. What an ending to a game. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they should change it. It's just one of those situations. That's why you have replay, and that's why I've said it before. There's a lot of things that happen in the NFL that I don't agree with. It's like you see with your own eyes whether it was a fumble or not, and then there's a couple instances where they don't change it, and you're just like, what is going on, and what were they watching? So who knows? A lot of it can be questioned, I think, but that was a fun ending to a football game for sure.
Pretty exciting.
Brandon
from Wichita would like to know what your favorite Christian song is.
This is a pretty easy one for me because I walked out to it as my walkout music actually here in Wichita in 2008. It's called Ooh Ah is the name of it by Grits. Grits is a group, and Grits is it's a Christian hip hop group, is what it is, and the name of the song is Ooh Ah. It's My Life Be Like is what the song's called, but the main chorus is My Life Be Like Ooh Ah, and so if you guys want to go out and listen to it, you can see what my walk-up music was here in '08. So that's a pretty easy one. That's my favorite Christian song, just because I've got to hear it night in and night out walking to the plate here in Wichita that year I played.
Awesome. Turner from Mount Hope would like to know, were you home when trick-or-treating was going on this year? And if you were, what was the best costume you saw?
I was not. My girls are still at that age, 10 and 7, where they're going to go out. We're going to go out with them. I am excited for that day, though, when they're a little older and I get to sit here and hand out candy, because I like doing that, and I like seeing all the different costumes, and I love kids, make them smile and be around them. So I think my vote for costumes, my kids, my Batgirl and my Wonder Woman, they had some pretty good costumes this year. It was probably some of the better ones that we've had. So I didn't really, a lot of the neighbor kids were dressed up. Obviously, we had some good ones throughout that group with the Star Wars stuff and all that. But and one of my youngest daughters, one of her best friends, lives right down the street, and she was a witch, and she was painted up all green. So we had some good ones. We had some good ones in our group that we went trick-or-treating with. But always a fun night. Always a fun night to see what the kids are dressed up as and kind of how creative they can get.
So if daughters were out as Batgirl and Wonder Woman, were Mom and Dad a superhero quartet there? Did we have somewhere?
We were not. We were not. We didn't dress up this year. No, we just we were Mom and Dad that night.
The best kind of superhero.
Yes,
absolutely.
That's right. That's right.
Our last question for this week is from Ian from Wichita, who wants to know, are you one of those dads who takes away the candy from his kids' Halloween basket, and what your favorite kind of candy is?
We're a sharing household here, that's for sure. You'll always find candy in our house. Like I mentioned last week, we got 4 sweet tooths in this house. And, but, they also know that they need to ask to have a piece as well. So I am a big, big chocolate peanut butter guy. So anything with chocolate and peanut butter in it, I'm a big fan. So that's my favorite. If I had to pick one, probably Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. So, but anything with chocolate and peanut butter, I'm a huge fan of.
My daughters always knew to hide the little miniature Mr. Good bars, because
that's a good one. That's a real good one too. Yeah, I got plenty that I like, no doubt about it. There's plenty of candy that I like, but my favorite is definitely anything with chocolate and peanut butter in it.
That's good stuff. Well, thank you for joining us this week, Kevin.
Robert, thanks as always, and thanks as always for those who send in the questions. Look forward to next week.
All right, see you then, Kevin. We want to thank Kevin Hooper for joining us on Short Hops this week. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Wichita Wingnuts manager, please send them to us at AskKevin@MinorLeagueSportsReport.com. That's AskKevin@MinorLeagueSportsReport.com. Please have your questions to us by Sunday evening so we can give the skipper a little bit of time to review those questions before we record our show on Monday. I want to thank you for joining us this week. I'm Rob Pannier, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we'll look for you next week on Short Hops.